This is some home finance software that I wrote recently and thought I might share it with people in case anybody might be able to use a tool like that. It is supposedly the ideal home budgeting method is the envelope system or putting money in jars. And so that whenever you get money coming in, you distribute it to the jars or envelopes, and those are your budget categories. And so when the money's empty, the jar's empty and there's no more money left in it, then you don't spend any more that month or until your next pay. And then, if you have bank accounts, that's separate because you would have to you'd get a deposit in your bank and then you withdraw money and put it in the jars. Well, this is the digital equivalent of that. And I apologize in advance for the name. I called it Jar Banks. So what we see here is the banks page. I thought I'd start with that, and then we'll go to the home page and kind of skim through the instructions. But you can see here we have two banking institutions. And by the way, if you wanted to use it for cryptocurrency, you could use wallets instead of banks. But of course, later on, we'll see how we reconcile accounts with the banks. And there are no banks in cryptocurrencies, so you wouldn't need that. But we'll just stick with the bank analogy for now, because that's what this was designed to handle. So you can see here we have the FeeMaster Bank. I have a short code for use in all the other pages. You don't need to write it all out all the time. And you know your own bank names. But a full name just to describe it and what kind of account it is. We see here we also have the usury credit card, UCC, and 49% interest. This might as well be, but you should pay them off every month anyway. That would be ideal. That's what budgeting is supposed to help you do. And so this is where you would set that up. And in all the pages, the top line is blank because that's where you add a new item. And whether you're adding or changing something else, when you're done with whatever you see on the page, you hit update and it takes all the changes or additions. That's going to be the same on every form. Now let's go to the home page, which describes the whole system. And you can see it starts off with a summary of all your accounts. It'll list all of your banks and then the total of the jars being budget category amounts. And we have cleared, pending, and balance. If anyone's not familiar with those terms, cleared means what the bank says happened, what the institution says happened. Pending is what you've spent or added, and it hasn't shown up at the bank statement yet. And so the balance is what would be left if everything was cleared. There were no more pending amounts. Everything had gone through the bank. This is what you would have left. The same for every account. And then for the jars, these don't matter. All you have is a balance. Right now, it's an irrelevant number because you would normally, this is just test data, you would normally have made sure you put money in the jars before you started the thing. And I didn't do that for demo purposes, so that's why that's a negative. But at any one time, you know that all your cash is in either these jars or owed to the usury credit card, if you have credit cards. This would be the amount you've spent during the month. So if you add up the credit card amounts and the jar amounts, you come up with this balance. Okay, so it's described here, and the jars page we'll go and see, and I'll demonstrate all these things. But this is the set of instructions. Plus, at the end of the year, you would click this link down here that will first of all, you print off your jars page so you know the total you spent for the year for each category. And then you would clean out all the transactions and start over. And it would put the new beginning balances for all your jars and banks. So let's go look at our jars first, because there's no point in looking at events till you have something to do with them. Events being transactions, things that happen. Those are events. Okay, the jars are your categories. The money jars, think of them as money jars sitting on a table. So far, I have a few things added. We have a car loan. You can see down here at the bottom, I put a note here that it's due on the 14th for $300. Similar for rent and similar for electric company, which is a utility. I have these check boxes you can check if something is a loan, such as a car loan should be a debt, okay? And this is the amount per pay that goes into the jar, not necessarily per month. The money will go out every month unless you have something that's paid quarterly or annually, but the jar's amounts are only concerned with what's coming in. And that is, if you're paid twice a month, say the 15th and 30th, then you would put the amount per pay, like half your monthly pay, half the month due for this jar will go into that at a time because you're paid twice a month. So if you're paid, say, just to make easy numbers, $1,000 a month, 500 per pay would go into the jars. If you're paid every 2 weeks, it's a little more complicated because it takes a while to get that extra paycheck. Every twice a year, you will get basically an extra paycheck. You get paid 26 times a year instead of 24, even though the grand total would be the same if you were paid, no matter how often you're paid. But it gets confusing and it makes it harder to budget because the amount you're going to put in the jar isn't just half your paycheck. It's going to be a little bit more than that to start, at least, because it takes more than just 2 pays to get your month's worth of what you're going to need to pay out. But at any rate, it will tell you how much is going out of each paycheck, what your current balance is, and these are negative because I haven't done a mass deposit yet. I'll tell you about that. How much you've spent for the year, the month and the year, and the sort order is just to keep these in whatever order you choose. I put them in order by pay date, not paycheck date, but date due, and that isn't necessarily alphabetical or anything. So I made a change here. I put that checkbox in, so I'm going to update. So now that checkbox stays there because that is a loan. It's a debt. Okay, now whenever something happens, that's an event, and you can see we have some events here. We had a beginning balance. That's to our FeeMaster Bank checking account. Okay, we started the system with a beginning balance, and I just put a number in. That X means it has cleared the bank. By definition, a beginning balance has cleared the bank. Okay, so I just put an X there to put something in there. These budget amounts I'm going to show you that instead of having to do the tedious job of dividing up your deposit amount into how much do I have to put in each jar and make an event out of it, it'll be done automatically. And I'll show you that in a second. But this is the results of that. We have, for each of our, so far, our 3 categories, it chose the jar, it ignored the bank, because that doesn't matter when you're putting things in jars. It gave today's month and day. You could have, you can change that later if you want. It says it was a deposit. It puts the amount per pay that it got from your jar accounts. It doesn't subtract anything, and it says this was a budget event. Okay, the ones that are empty haven't yet cleared the bank. Okay, so let's go see the deposit to jars. We're going to put some money in. First, let's look at our total budgeted amount so far is only $500. So we're going to go to put $500 as a deposit to our total jars and say this would be a paycheck or deposit that we're making. I'm going to hit go. It said it distributed 500. Let's go see if it actually happened. And look, we have more deposits in there. Okay, it added those amounts automatically. Sorry about my notifications on my phone. Can't really stop those. I could put it on mute, I suppose. I should have done that before. But anyway, you can see there that it put those lines in for you. What it didn't do is make the actual bank deposit. So we're going to do that. We don't care about the jar because that's irrelevant when we're making a bank deposit. We're going to go to FeeMaster Bank and say deposit, and we're going to add $500. Okay, and it hasn't cleared the bank, so we're going to hit update. You could just hit return, and there we have our deposit to the FeeMaster Bank. Let me see where that went. unless it didn't go in. Oh, there it is. Viewmaster Bank on February 20th, and $500 went in. So now the jar balances shouldn't be zero, and well, they're zero. They're not negative anymore. So we can see that we paid out this much. Our monthly payments, we owed $200 for the electric company, we owed $500 for rent and $300 for a car loan, and we paid those out. For the year, it's the same because we've only paid 1 month worth. Normally, by February, you would have paid 2 months. But here we have, the half amounts per pay, and that's not going to change from 1 month to the next. Usually, you can, but this is the amount that you have budgeted, and this is the amount that has actually happened. The balance is what you have left after all your deposits and withdrawals from those jars. Okay, so this keeps track of how much is in each jar. It'll put it in automatically when you use that deposit to jars. Here's the list. The banks that come up in that list on the events is made here. And with all the forms, as always, you would just fill in the top line and hit update, and it will add the line. Now, if you want to delete a line, you see this up here. If you want to delete a line, you're going to remove the short name and then hit update. So I'm going to add one and then delete it. Let's put XYZ here, delete me now, and I'm going to update to add it. Okay, now I'm going to remove the short name, which is that. I'm going to just take that out and hit update, and it's gone. Okay, so it'll tell you on each page how to delete something. The same with here, it's going to be a different field for each thing. Remove the jar name and then update. So if I wanted to take one of these out, I would clear that out, say clear out electric company, hit update, and it would be gone. And now if I want to add something, say something happens on the 22nd, we're going to pay $12.50 to, I don't know, entertainment of some sort. Let's see, Spotify. Well, I don't need to say that here. I need to say that here. It's not a debt, and I'm going to, I only need half that amount, so that's $6.25, okay, per pay. And I'm going to give that a sort order of 40, and I just put any number you can put just so it's the order you want things to appear. I leave spaces, or digits between the numbers in case I want to add something between two other things that exist. So I'm going to hit update, and there's my Spotify on the 22nd that I'm going to owe them $12.50 every month and $6.25 per pay. So right now there's nothing in there, nothing happened because it didn't exist when I made my last deposit. But normally you would set up your whole year's budget. Say Spotify was only paid quarterly. I could change this to quarterly. And it's going to be, say, $20 per quarter. I'm just picking numbers out of the air. So now you got to think about what amount this is. So that's quarterly is every 3 months. So you would have to, let's make this easier on me. We're going to make this $30. So I'm going to say we need $10. Let's see. We're going to have 2 pays a month. So that's 6 pays. So 1/6 of that, 1/6. So I'm going to make this $10 just to make it easy on me for head math here. And this is going to be 60. So 60 every quarter. That means I need $20 a month. So $10 per pay. And I'm going to update that. And there we are. So the next time I do deposit to jars, it will also put $10 in Spotify. Whether you actually have the money or not, you got to accurately enter the number that you're going to deposit and make sure that makes sense. So this is how basically the thing works. It will start off that the top line is always your add something new line. If a jar is applicable, you're going to take something out of a jar. Say you want to transfer from one jar to a next. Like, for example, we're not on a budget utility plan, so in the winter our gas bill will be higher and electric bill lower, and in the summer it'll be the opposite when we run the air conditioner. So I may want to transfer my normal budgeted amount from one to the other depending on the season. So what I would do is I would just pick the jar. I would say if I had, from electric company, if I had too much in there because of the season, I would say a transfer, and I would put subtract, say, $100 from electric company and update, and then I'd add another line where I choose gas company, and would fill in the bank there, and I would say transfer, and I would add $100 and then hit update. So it will accommodate pretty much any financial situation you're likely to run into at home, and could be adaptable if you know how to code, but it's pretty useful. And at the end of the year, what you would do is you would look at your budget here. You would have your monthly, wouldn't the month wouldn't matter, but you'd have your balance and how much you spent during the year. You could print that off in your browser and then go to the home page and go down here to the bottom where it says click this link at the end of the year. So it says print the jars page. Then after the new year has started, so you get January 1st, but you haven't yet begun to add events, then you click this link to wipe out all last year's events and set beginning balances on all the jars and banks, and it will do that. And it will presume that everything that had been pending will clear. It doesn't care about that at the end of the year. So then if you're sure you want to do that, you would click the link and would tell you, this is going to wipe out your stuff. Do you want to go ahead? So that's the system, and it's, like I said, fairly simple. It's easy to upload the files. There aren't very many. The main thing is you have to create a database and a user for the database, and then enter that information into the config file. There's a file called config.php. You would open that in a code editor, not a word processor. Otherwise, it will add hidden characters that will make it not work. And you would put in the information. Then this is no different from, as I have said before, about a WordPress install, where if you wanted to run your WordPress on your own server, you first of all have to have a hosting account, and you would download their software. You would set your database information, upload the files, and then follow their install instructions. Well, here you just you create your database on your hosting account. You download this software. You set the configuration for the database, and then you upload everything, and it just runs. There's nothing else to do after you do that. So most of the issues will be with deciding what jars you have and how much each one should start with and each one should get per pay. That's the hard part. And that's something you would have to figure out even if you were doing this manually with literal jars. Okay, only this is just, as I said, the digital version of that. So there it is, Jar Jar Banks, and thanks for listening.